Okay, I'm making this video just like what happened last time, supremely late, but that's because the moment the time the Switch 2 Direct started, I was taking the train to go to university, and I would have done it a little bit sooner if it wasn't for the fact that we had to pick up my sister's boyfriend from the airport. So yeah, and as I've just finished watching the thing, so yeah, I'm sorry for this video being late, but it doesn't matter. So, the Switch 2 Direct, the day we were all waiting for, and I got, there's 3.25 pages of notes to go through, which, to be 100% honest, it's a lot less than I was expecting because because as we saw from the tweet, that thing was 1 hour long, and it was immediately announced later. It was immediately announced that there was going to be 2 days of Nintendo Treehouse. So we all expected this thing to be like fucking gigantic. Like, and I mean I have to censor that one, but this was like big. This was going to be stacked, but. I have my own opinion on this direct after the I will say something about it once we reach the end of the list. And yeah, so let's start off with the beginning of the list, and let's start off with Mario Kart World, the new Mario Kart that was teased when the Switch 2 was teased. Also the first game that I got spoiled on, and fortunately this was the first game they showed, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Basically, this is open world Mario Kart, so it almost feels like CTR as Crash Team Racing-esque, but with the usual Mario Kart stuff added on it. So, and there's going to be a direct on the 17th, which, spoilers, I'm not going to talk about it. So sorry for that. And it's going to be one of the launch titles for the Switch 2. In fact, there's a lot of games on this thing that are going to be launch titles. Now, I didn't write them on the notes which ones are, but there's a lot of these games in the notes list that are going to be launch titles. So, yeah. Then we continue on with a bunch of technobabble. First off, with Game Chat, which is system chat. Nintendo figuring out how system chat works without resorting to any kind of gimmick, which I guess it's cool. But there's one thing that bothered me. You see, in the footage where those Discord-esque mini screens, the footage on those mini screens, those secondary screens was super choppy. To which, that's kind of embarrassing because if you're trying to show this thing as this feature as a brand new feature for Nintendo Switch 2, then get some better footage. It makes it look like this is going to be a complete disaster from start to finish. I mean, we are going to assume it's going to be a disaster because on Nintendo Switch Online, it's a disaster anyway. But still, you could have made it a little less blatant. But yeah. And of course, then they presented the Switch 2 camera, which I wasn't aware we returned to the iToy days. I'm pretty sure if you know, you know. Then they introduced Game Share, which is basically one console sharing the game with others, with the one Switch sharing the game with other Switches that don't have the game. It shows Switch 2 when you can share Switch 2 games on being played on Switch 1. And then, of course, some technobabble, which all can be described as, which can all summed up as, this thing is bigger, better, louder, and better than the Switch 1. Now, one of the things they actually talked about is the fact that to transfer data and games, you need a Switch 2 and a Switch 1, and then use the transfer and then transfer the data from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2. To which I hope that there's another way to do that, like for example, backing up games on the cloud, backing up saves and games on the cloud through NSO, because chances are, because of course my sister and I are definitely going to buy a Switch 2. I mean, it's almost guaranteed we're going to buy it. But I don't exactly, it's very likely we're going to buy it by returning the Switch 1. So, and I know it's kind of sacrilegious to say that, but we don't really collect consoles, so it's very likely going back to what is now known as Game Life, not more GameStop apparently. But yeah, and yeah, I hope there's another way to actually do that, because I don't want to cut off the Engage playthrough, because I'm actually having a lot of fun with that game, and I really don't want to cut it off, having to cut off the playthrough short, or having to buy the game again, having to go to where I was, and then restart, because it's going to be a bit of a pain in the dick. But yeah, and of course another game they showed, that being this Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour, which is basically just to explain how the Switch 2 works. So, no big deal. And then immediately, they announced the release date for the thing, that being June 5th. To which, now, I did read the tweet from, I think, Wario64 that said, oh, the Switch 2 is going to be released in June and the pre-orders are going to happen in April. To which I immediately discarded it by saying, okay, the pre-orders in April make a lot of sense, but the release in June, it's way too early. It's just, I call bullshit because it's way too early. And turns out that thing is actually releasing it in June, so yeah, that's I mean, that's a weird. I'm guessing they're trying to cash in on the fact of the summer vacations, and people going abroad and going on vacation, and they're probably going to take the Switch 2s alongside them. But still, that's extremely early. So, yeah. But yeah. Then we got a list. There's gonna be a lot of lists for this. There's gonna be a lot of lists in this direct. The list showing some Switch games that have been upgraded for the Switch 2, which was something that a lot of people expected. And they showed Super Mario Party Jamboree, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby the Forgotten Land, which is also going to have a special after story, which is going to be exclusive to the Switch 2. Then we got Metroid Prime 4 Upgrade and Metroid Prime 4, and of course Pokemon Legends ZA. And I'm pretty sure now, I might be the only one, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who had, at the moment when this was announced, had one game in mind, that being Smash. Now, for the record, this game also has the new game that Sakura is working on, so it's very likely Smash right now is off the cards. But here's the thing. I remember a tweet that Hungrybucks said about how they should tackle Smash Ultimate for the Switch for the new console without having to make a new game, and he basically said an updated re-release with extra stuff on it. And now that this is a thing, this could very well happen. And if it does happen, again, I doubt it because Sakurai is working on a new game, which was shown here. If it does, there's pretty much there's virtually no limit to who could be added, because we got Western characters, because in Smash Ultimate we got Western characters that everybody waited for years, characters we didn't expected, and of course the whole thing was topped off by Sora, who's like the impossible dream because everybody expected Disney would get in the way. And then turns out that Disney was absolutely fine with the idea of Sora being a Smash from the very beginning. Sakurai was no more than to be convinced. But still, yeah, if that actually happens, we got a humongous. It's basically outside of the usual meme picks and of course non-game characters. Yeah, it's basically a crapshoot. Like seriously, because at this point, there's nobody that can top Sora. Nobody. I know somebody's gonna say, well, Luigi, but seriously, nobody can top Sora. So, yeah, good luck with that. And then, of course, we got a new game called Dragon Drive, which was made to use the mouse feature on the Joy-Con 2s, which I assume not many people are going to use. Maybe Metroid Prime 4, but at this point, you might as well just use a normal keyboard and mouse and not use this gimmicky ass shit with the mouse stuff. But yeah. And then, of course, we got a list of games that have already been released that are going to come on the Switch 2. Starting off with Elden Ring, which I'm sort of surprised that it wasn't ported before, but I'm guessing the game was a bit too big for the Switch 1 to be run natively on the Switch 1 without the cloud. But yeah. Then we got Hades 2, Street Fighter 6, plus amiibos for Luke, Jimmy, and Kimberly. Demon X Machina, Split Fiction, EAFC, and Madden. No Formula 1, amazingly enough. Then we got Hogwarts Legacy, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, Hitman World of Assassination Plus, an announcement of a 007 game made by the developers of Hitman. Then we got the remaster of Bravely Default Flying Fairy. Then we got Yakuza 0, and a brand new game in Horror Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is the sequel of Age of Calamity and the prequel of Tears of the Kingdom, which, by the way, now, I know that a lot of people were expecting the Fire Emblem 4 remake to show up, which it didn't. It did not show up. But I am willing to go out on a limb and say that if we got a new Horror Warriors game, we might get a new Fire Emblem Warriors game in the near future. In the near future, we should say. And I would not be surprised if it was engage based. Now, OG Fire Emblem Warriors, as you know, was a completely original story, while Warriors Free Hopes was an alternative timeline to the for the post-time skip stuff in Free Houses. And honestly, I have no idea what it could tackle for an Warriors game that with Engage as its theme, or as its base game. And of course, I would buy that because number one, I actually enjoy the OG Warriors and Free Hopes a lot. And as you know, I'm doing the Fire Emblem Engage playthrough. So an Engage Warriors game, I'd buy that I'd buy that shit like day one. So yeah, I will love that. But yeah. Then we got the thing that pretty much everybody was asking for years. The GameCube games for the NSO, and they showed Wind Waker, which of course makes sense. Soul Calibur 2, bit of a weird pick, NF0 GX, way to dick tease the fans. And when this was happening, I started asking, okay, but where's Sunshine? We're like the real big hitters. And then immediately the trailer, as if you heard me, the trailer showed a bunch of games that are coming into the future, and the first was Super Mario Sunshine, and one of them, amongst the first five, if I remember correctly, maybe it was in third, it was Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, to which I don't remember if Radiant Dawn was on the GameCube. I think it was, but I could be wrong. So I would assume, if Path of Radiance is gonna make it in, I am going to assume Radiant Dawn is gonna as well, because of course you need to have both Talos games. But yeah. Now we got Deltarune, Borderlands 4, which, by the way, what in Christ green earth was Randy Pitchford wearing on his head? Then we got Civilization 7. Then we got WWE 2K and NBA 2K. Then we got Survival Kids, Enter the Gungeon 2, which they went from 2D to 3D, so they went the Risk of Rain route. Then we got Star Seeker, Astroneer Expeditions. Then we got Cyberpunk 2077, which now I want to see what kind of mess they made for that one. Then they made the FF7 Remake Integrate, which, yeah, makes sense. They got both FF7 Remake and the side story with Yuffie. And of course, I'm going to assume that they'll port Rebirth and the third chapter of FF7 Remake into the on the Switch 2 as well. And now we got a quick fire list, which is actually pretty long. So we got Kunitsugami, Silk Song, which, okay, sure. Then we got Story of Seasons, Grand Bazaar, which was shown at the last Direct, Goodnight Universe, 2 Point Museum, Wild Arts S, Witchbrook, which was also shown at the Direct last week. Then we got Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, also shown at the Direct. Star Wars Outlaws, Nobunaga's Ambition, Fast Fusion, Shadow Labyrinth, shown at the Direct last week. Then we got Devil Summoner, or Rider Remastered, whatever the name was, but I call it Devil Summoner. No Sleep for Konami Date, Reanimal, Fortnite, Ridge Racer, Professor Layton in the New World of Steam, Tamagotchi Plaza, and Human Fall Flat 2. And now we got the Duskbloods, the brand new game by From Software, to which I don't think you need me to say it, but this is basically Bloodborne 2 without Sony's involvement. Now, I would like to think, as I'm pretty sure a lot of people possibly legitimately think, that this was basically made as a bit of a middle finger to Sony, because I guess Sony isn't allowing them to make a sequel to Bloodborne, and of course they're not allowing to make a PC port, even though Miyazaki himself stated that it would be I'd be fine with a PC port. So I guess they just made it because this Lost Worlds game is going to be an exclusive to Nintendo, the Switch 2. So I guess they called Nintendo and said, "Hey, you want your own Bloodborne?" And they just made it. So of course, with they made a spiritual sequel to Bloodborne because they don't want to they want to get Sony Nintendo pissed because they don't want to get Sony pissed. But yeah. This is basically Bloodborne but Nintendo, so yeah, there's that. And of course London, but it's basically Bloodborne 2. Come on, it's basically Bloodborne 2, it's Nintendo Bloodborne, let's just put it that way. Then, as we said, we got the new game that Sakurai teased that when the Switch 2 Direct was announced on Twitter, on X, and this is the game, Kirby Air Riders, so the sequel of Kirby Air Ride. So again, that effectively means that Smash right now is completely off the table. And we end up with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which, so of course, I think this is going to be the first game where we actually see, the new model for Donkey Kong, which turns out, apparently from what I've heard, mostly from Tom Fox, that apparently the reason why they changed it because the rare version of the model of Donkey Kong was very, very hard to very hard to work with because it was very inexpressive. And considering there's a lot of expressions with this new model, I'd say they pretty much fixed that one. And that was basic. And of course, there's an open world game with Donkey Kong. And honestly, I almost thought that this was going to be like Donkey Kong Country, but yeah, it's not. It's a completely different game. But it looks good. Don't get me wrong, but. Yeah, that's basically what this game is going to be. It's an open world Donkey Kong game with the new model, and that's basically all about what the show in this Switch 2 Direct is about. Right now, I've recorded like 16 minutes and 40 of audio, and wait, 16 minutes to cover like an hour, which is actually pretty cool. So basically, here's what I was thinking. When the Direct last week was announced, the first thing I said was, what was the point? Because what would be the point of making a Direct when you're supposed to release, you have another Direct lined up that the next week for your brand new console, for your new console. And after watching the Direct, I realized. Okay, there was a reason why, because you should know, a good chunk of these games that are on this list were already released for other platforms. They're just going to be ported on the Switch too. There's like a very few amount of games that are completely brand new made for the Switch 2. The rest is just ports of games that were already out. While the other video was Switch 2 was basically games that were made for this. They were either new games or games that haven't been released yet. The majority of them were either new games that haven't been released or games that pretty much all the games are still yet to be released. So yeah, there's that. So that makes sense. But actually, the only one that I remember was like the quickfire list. That being, I think it was High on Life, the only game in this list that was released. But yeah, and of course, High on Life, a bit awkward considering what happened to the creator of Rick and Morty. But yeah, now there's a reason why they made the Direct first. They wanted to take care of the new stuff first, and then fill the runtime of the Switch 2 with games that have been released that are going to the Switch 2. So yeah, there's that. So that was basically the Switch 2 Direct. And I got nothing else to say other than your turn, Rockstar.